Somebody asked about sharing their faith and sharing the Bible, sharing the Word of God, and felt that she was always saying the wrong thing or taking the wrong approach or doing it badly. How do we minister, she wants to know, the Word of God with love? Now, she's onto the clue. If you minister without it, you'll get nowhere. But what is love? And what does that mean? First of all, your life has to speak it. I'm sure you all know the very wonderful passage in 1 Corinthians that talks about what love is. Love is. Let me just remind you of what love is. Love is patient. Love is kind. Doesn't envy. Doesn't boast. It's not proud. Doesn't dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. Doesn't fly off the handle at the slightest thing, in other words. Keeps no record of wrongs, and it doesn't delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. Love never fails. Never fails to do what? Never fails to go on loving. Doesn't mean it never fails to get a good response. So you can love like Jesus did and get crucified for it. Love gets a response, though, one way or the other. And so first of all, how's your life speaking? You've got to have a life that speaks love. There's got to be some of the elements I've just read to you: patience, kindness. Kindness is the active part of patience. Patience is long suffering, waiting out a difficult situation. Kindness is doing actively outrageous, loving things while you're waiting it out. You can do all these things and still be rejected or not listened to. But you can't love somebody unless you get to know them. And you've got to let them get to know you before you even get round to sharing the Word of God. In other words, it takes a lot of work. Love is work. And it means building a relationship before you ever start and say, let me tell you about the 4 spiritual laws or how you can accept Jesus. You might not have that time to make a relationship, so you do the best you can, but you make some sort of a connection of relationship before you share the Word of God. Do you ever listen to a stranger telling you what you should believe? I don't. And so what sort of a stranger would I listen to? Someone I liked a lot. Think of all the teachers you had. Did you ever listen to anyone you didn't like? I didn't. I could tell you now the teachers I didn't like and failed the subject because I didn't want to listen to them. And so love starts with liking. And that begins by spending time with somebody before you ever get around to sharing your faith with them, hoping that they will find faith too. So I was talking to a lady not long ago and I said, how did you find Jesus? She said, what did you mean? She didn't understand my language. And I said, how did you come to faith? Or how did you end up being a church person? And she said, well, do you mean whose preaching was I converted under? And she knew those words. And I said, yes. She said, no preacher. Aunt Mary's practicing. That's what brought me to God. Nobody's preaching, somebody's practicing, living out love. So let your life speak, make a relationship, spend time, if possible, over coffee, even if you're in a workplace and you can't do more than that. And then, when it's time to speak, make sure you've listened first. Love listens. Everybody wants to be listened to. My kids used to say, you never listen to me, Mum. You're always talking to me or at me, but you don't listen to me. And I had to work hard at listening. Talkers, like me, need to learn how to listen. And people that aren't talkers, listen with love. And then you'll earn the opportunity. There was a girl in Africa. She was a missionary kid. Stuart and I were in the missionary school in a very difficult time in Africa. Her parents were in the jungle translating the Bible. She didn't know if they were in trouble with the people, the guerrillas that were around that place, and she was worried about them. She was 17. And as I started to see this girl, her whole body language told me she was frightened and she was lonely and she was worried. And I only had 4 days in that school, but I worked hard. I looked for her, I sat next to her, and I began to listen with love. And I listened and I listened. And I wanted to keep jumping in because she was mad at the mission. She was mad at God for bringing them out to Africa. She was mad that she didn't know if her parents were dead or alive. And that's understandable. And so I listened and listened. And I wanted to keep jumping in and sort of defend God and defend the mission. And the Lord kept saying, listen, listen, listen. Listen with love. And in the end, she was listened out. And in the listening, I got to know a whole lot about that girl and exactly what I needed to share with her from the Word of God. And the day I left, she scribbled me a little note, which was very encouraging, actually. She said, because you listened to me, I knew that you loved me. Whoa. And because I knew that you loved me, I listened to you. I keep that in my Bible. So live it, listen a lot, get this person's heart, build the relationship, and the time will come when you can share something. Not always lead her to Christ, I assure you. Maybe that'll happen 2 or 3 times in your lifetime. But you'll put a link on the chain. Very important link. And maybe she'll say, it wasn't listening to a preacher, it was the love I saw in my friend, and she listened to me. So how do we get that entrance for the Word of God? A whole lot of work. God's work. You listen with love.